I got stripes, stripes around my shoulder. I got chains, chains around my feet. Good morning. I got news for everyone that's got an ear to hear and a heart to perceive and understand the deep things of God and that have eyes to see. You know, I do. I am chained. God demands that I go forward and that I represent him. I do his bidding well and that I deliver to the masses. I send out, the trumpet blast and to feed meat, to his flock, to his people in due season. It's required of me as a son of God. But I make myself a worthless servant because I'm not greater than my Lord. I'm going to get right to it because I have a lot on my punch list today. I need to see my parents and show them a great deal of respect and honor. So I want to get right to the message. This one's going to speak on, take heed, pilgrims. In flight, ground thyself for a great shaking. And God gave me a different title, and I said, I'm not good with that. And so we worked on it, and well, that's what really it kind of sums up to this message. I want you, those people that watch, people's videos, they very seldom go back and research the progression, from point A to point Z, or the present, and the redemption of a man's soul, the great cauldron and the scum that rises to the surface, that could throw people off because they don't understand the workmanship of God. And so, just to refresh your memory, I had a vision. God said, "What seest thou? Look." And I saw a fishing boat, which represented, the bride of Christ. It represented the true church of God, like Peter's fishing boat. And Jesus was as tall as the mast. But to cut to the chase, that underneath the water of this boat that was perpendicular to it, was a submarine, and it had a red star, and it had the name China on there, which, if God doesn't point me in a direction, if he does point me in a direction, then apparently it's pretty damn important. Okay? Obviously, it's hidden underneath the surface. It's hidden from all of us. And if God doesn't reveal it to us, then we wouldn't know. Because we watch TV and news, and it's most all of it is misinformation. And so God, he's the only one that reveals these hidden things to us. Well, as I humbled myself and asked permission to tread the heavenly courts as a servant, God brought me forward and he spoke to me and he said, right out of the gate, what seest thou? That happened last night too. It's happening all the time now because he said he gives greater grace to those that are justified by faith, through obedience. And so the grace that God has given me and continues to increase, lest I dash my foot against the stone, Jesus Christ, against the cornerstone, against him, the truth. And then how now then shall you know all truth? If you got Jesus, you got it all. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And so he broke it down to me, and once again, I saw a submarine, and it had a red star. But the name this time was Russia. And then I saw a stork flying overhead, and then it changed, transformed into a plane. And it reminded me of Pearl Harbor and, the typical, plane that the Japanese use. It had a circle, a red circle, and the name Japan on it. Well, stork usually brings nuclear. If you read the book of Zechariah, a stork delivers usually a nuclear warhead. Yeah, dig deep on that one, and I'll guarantee you that's what a stork does. So, China, Russia, and Japan. These are huge creditors for the straw man, the United States legal fiction. They are near the top of the list of creditors. I mean, is war just business? Think about it. Think about that for a minute. So God is warning me, and he is telling me to warn you. Oh, it gets deeper than this. I'm just scratching the surface. So, our allies, allegedly, they turn on us. Well, I mean, the United States corporation is bankrupt, right? We're bankrupt and we're telling everybody else what to do. Oh, man. I mean, I'd be mad if someone owed me and couldn't pay, wouldn't you? So, it's just business. But not just business. This is a spiritual war. Okay? It's a spiritual war. Right. If our country turned to Jesus, wouldn't he remove the debt? Isn't that what isn't that why Jesus died for our sin, is to remove the debt? So if everyone in the United States turned to Jesus, don't you think he would defend us? He'd wipe out the debt, because what we do in heaven, as we present our case and we offer an acceptable sacrifice, then he wipes the slate clean as he confirms the covenant with us, and we lay down our life for God and for our countrymen. And since he wipes the slate clean in heaven, in the courts of heaven, and then once again the covenant is renewed, and guess what? It's manifest here on earth, and then God fights against our enemies, against those that won't forgive a debt, that they don't know the holy writ, the oracles of God, and the mercies that triumph over judgment. And since they don't understand how God works, since God is foreign, you see, our Christian fathers, you see, all these nations around us, you see, were to learn and to observe the mighty hand and power of God. Get down, brother, get down. Well, hey, let me expound a little more about these things. June 1st, 2021, God told me in the Straits of Gibraltar that 6 ships will be sunk. Wow. Well, I started thinking, man, I said, you want me to tell them that? I'm sticking my neck out. And I said, wait a minute. Take upon me my yoke. My way is easy. I'm not sticking my neck out, because I don't give a crap what you think about it. I take no prize. I receive no reward. I just go out as the instrument of a foolish shepherd in the hands of my king. So don't blame me, and I don't take no credit, and I don't take no loss. Yeah, you can stick it where the sun never shines as far as I care. But to those that hear God's word, and to them he is drawing, they'll receive this message well. You know what? I'm not afraid of nothing and nobody. Bring it. I don't care. I pray that you do have ears. I pray. But let me continue here. I don't need to get sidetracked here because I know this is a warning. It is a trumpet blast. Now, when these things come to pass, all of Israel, okay, Manasseh, Ephraim, yeah, the northern part of what we know geographically as Israel, the 10 tribes that are scattered in the media and all over the planet, that a prophet is born unto all Israel. That's right. God chooses whomever he wants to choose. Who am I? Oh, the broom handle to contend against the broom head, saying, Lord, why did you make me thus? You know what? I didn't have a say. He chose me. I did not choose him. And that goes with every other believer. We're predestined unto eternal glory. He knew us before he knit us together in our mother's womb. And before we came out, he ordained us unto the nations by the hand of God to be prophetic, to be his sons, and to go through great afflictions and tribulations so that he could conform us, that we might learn obedience, and that we would never again participate in insurrection, that we would be every whit part of the resurrection and the restoration as a result of learning of God, that we would have a right, because we're afflicted, to rule with him. So take heed and read well. Pray for the protection, to our soldiers. As well, the families to whom, they offer up their selves, their substance, whatever it takes. They offer up their own selves to honor them who fight to restore God's house once again upon the heavens and this earth, our earth. God's given it to us. All those, military families that are offering up their, going to get choked up. They're going to suffer great loss. And how we can assist them with food, shelter, prayers. It's going to get real ugly. And you're of no benefit if you're sitting on your ass, mocking and scoffing, and a stick in the mud, whining and complaining with bitterness, the gall bitterness in your spirit, full of pride. What'd they say? It's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Since we have had to watch this nation all these years, all the corruption, all the fraud, that, what? It's always been like this. But now is your calling is now. We've seen all this. Everything has been, the wreckage that the leaders of this nation have produced. And if you don't stand up now, do you know where your children are going to end up? Yeah. Can you imagine what's going to happen to your daughters, your sons and daughters, if you don't stand up now and do the right way? So God turned me to 2 Samuel 11, 4 through 2. And I'm gonna bury the hatchet right in your chest. And I'm gonna leave a very deep impression on you. 4 through 2. I'm going backwards because God, you know what? This world is, we got to flip things around. And that's exactly what he's trying to show you. So we're going to go backwards here because that's how he's doing it. David sent messengers and took her. This has everything to do with David and Bathsheba. I've always wondered, and I've always taken it the wrong way about Uriah. What a patriot. Fighting for kingdom and country, for honor, for valor. I could never figure this out until God laid it out to me today. And I'll give you 3 examples of that. So David sent messengers. He took Bathsheba, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, and she purified what? She was purified from her uncleanness. What? He laid with her? He laid with her. Well, apparently she was desirous. She was purified. What? From her uncleanness? So why wouldn't he want to go into a woman that really, signifies, the bride of Christ? Did she play a whore? I'm always thought, she's playing a whore. How many women have just kind of laid it out there, and tempted you, and then off you go. Okay, well, let me explain. And she returned unto her house, okay? And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, well, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Yeah. Her name means a daughter of oath. You made an oath to serve God. And what? She was out there cleaning herself, cleansing herself, washing in front of David, who is the king, the anointed one. And she was beautiful to his sight. Why wouldn't she be? If she's doing the right thing, she's got an oath to purify herself. And she's doing what so many of you and us have not done. And that is a beautiful thing when you see it. And it came to pass in the evening, tide that David arose from off his bed, and he walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful, as I just explained. And I consider Uriah, what? Why did he have to die? Why was he tricked? Why was he deceived? Okay? Why? He was even among the 37 of, put in the books of record, as men of valor that fought, that were notable men that laid down their life and served King David. So in one respect, he was not only talented, a great patriot, camaraderie, he was engaged, for the kingdom of Israel, okay, and commanded by Joab, under King David. And his name means the Lord is my light, a flame of God. I mean, what's there not to love about that? The big problem here is King David, even if he was in error, just like Abraham that went unto Hagar, and the firstborn in his lineage was after the flesh. It was a mistake, a big mistake. And King David just made a big mistake because he was following his lust. And, and what he did with Bathsheba was an error because it was based upon the lust. That's why they lost their firstborn child. God took it from them because he didn't respect what happened. But the reason it happened, and it could easily happen again and again, is that Uriah did not obey King David, even though King David was in error. Just like Trump might be in error, okay? Just like Abraham was in error, okay? He didn't wait for the promise. And sometimes we'll look at Benjamin Netanyahu, and right out of the gate, they're in error. Okay, because this is how God works. He first shows you what's wrong, and then when you finally obey him, he'll show you what's right, and he'll give you the promises from above. So we also can look at Asahel. He was just like Uriah. He was self-willed. He didn't obey. He did not obey Joab, and he did not obey the king. Instead, he would not stop trying to make a name for himself, leaning on his own understanding. Yeah, trying to get his name written in the record books. Pride. And so he died. And it was a foolish death. It was completely unnecessary because, quite frankly, God had the intent to bring both Israel and Judah together as one. And actually, Asahel was fighting against God's will, and he died. I'll give you another example of the Elamite. Elamite came out of the battle and took Saul. Saul wasn't dead. And the Elamites were notorious for slaying the wounded and the weak that trailed behind when Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. And so they were cursed forever. And guess what? This Elamite did the same damn thing. Saul was wounded, and he perceived in his own heart, that he wasn't going to make it. And Saul even begged him to take his life, that the chariots and whatever, I'm going to say the Philistines or whoever they were fighting at the time wouldn't, that he wouldn't die in the hands of his enemies. And so the Elamite thought, once again, leaning on his own understanding, wanting to make a name for himself so that he could be elevated. He was what? He wanted a prize, and he wanted a reward. Pride. The root of pride is to receive something for your service. And he didn't realize that God honors his anointed, whether they're in error or not. Like President Trump, even if we can go back and find some flaws and mistakes on his part, and now we imagine evil against him. You see what I mean? That does not hold ground. It doesn't hold water. It has no credibility. God put him in that position, and he is the anointed of God. And you're going to lose your life if you don't get on board here and see what God's teaching us through the scriptures, because it's been hidden from us, for centuries. Even if our leader has made a mistake, we still stand by him and we fight for him, and we receive no reward. We take no prisoners, and we receive no prize. We stand with him, we hold the line, and we fight for him, and we pray for him, even if right out of the gate he made a mistake. Just like Abraham, just like David, just like Saul. All these leaders were not perfect. But these are the leaders, Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump. Yeah, my staff and my rod, they comfort me. Who holds the scepter of God? Who has the right to rule and reign and to judge all the waters and every nation? God's elect, his anointed ones. Get down, brother, get down. Yeah. So, we're going to move on here. I'm going to try to finish it up here, because I need to get to it. War is nigh. And so, God's showing me that, it's only going to be a very short while, and the shit is going to hit the fan. And you need to be standing on solid ground. So he took me to, and I think this is interesting, and I haven't had time to research it. I just came from 2 Samuel 11, 4 through 2. And now God says, go to Deuteronomy 11, 4 through 2. I said, wow, I haven't had time to research all these things or ask these questions to God because, they didn't receive because they never asked. So, depending on how deep and how wide and how far and how high you want to go, how deep are the waters, Lord? Really? Seriously. Let's go in there. I want to be completely covered in the water, in the depths of God's riches. So I'm looking here at Deuteronomy 11, 4 through 2, and I see, well, hey, and what he did unto the army of Egypt, wow, and unto their horses and to their chariots, how he made the water of the Red Sea to overflow them as they pursued after you, and how the Lord hath destroyed them unto this day. Well, let's go back and see. God's getting ready to do something radical. Hey, you know what? Heads up, brother. Why should we be shaken? God's got this one. It's in his hand. And he's trying to build up your confidence and just throw fear right out the damn window. Right? Let me go. And his miracles and his acts, which he did in the midst of Egypt, unto Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and unto all his land. Pharaoh is Satan. He is the antithesis of a loving father, a king that rules just and rightly, that's given you every provision for amnesty, because mercy triumphs over judgment, but he can be shrewd. Yes, he can be. Yeah, the great and terrible. He can be a terror to his enemies. And if you want to be slack, if you want to be negligent, if you want to stay stiff-necked, ignorant, you want to be simple, yeah, and say, well, I'm just not smart enough, or you know what, I'm just a child. No. None of your excuses are going to pan, and they won't with me either. Because I'm his representative. And I'm not going to accept any excuse. Not one. Because I have a rod in my hand. And I can't wait till I beat those vessels and break them into shards that cannot be put back together again. If they're useless, I'll break them. And then we go, and know ye this day, for I speak not with your children, which have not known and which have not seen the chastisement of the Lord your God, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his stretched out arm. I'm speaking to you, mature Christians that have made an oath, that have sworn before God that you would lay down your life and that you'd serve him with all your heart, strength, and soul, and that you'd follow him whithersoever he goeth, even unto death, to be faithful even unto death. So wheresoever the carcass be, there shall the eagles be, the prophets of God. And they're not a bald eagle, they're a gier eagle, they're a vulture. And they're drawn to the stench of a dying church. And this death is beautiful in the eyes of God. And I'll eat whatever remains, because that is my job. Until there is an absolute thorough closure and consummation of your flesh. Because God, that is the enemy of God, your flesh. You're supposed to prepare a place for him. And he in the heavens retain him until the restitution of all things. And when you did your part, he will send Jesus to you. That's right. and he'll come down the same way he went up. Do you want to follow Jesus? Well, then do what he has done and what he does and what he's doing. And you'll be delightfully enchanted and marvel and glory. And there'll be great gladness and joy in his appearing in your life. So, I'm going to, try to remind those that are watching to always read the description. I want you to understand this is not Jeffrey John Wilson. God is speaking to and through me. I am nothing but a vessel of honor that God can fill up and I can pour it out. I'm just an instrument. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. When you're nothing, God is everything. Oh. When you're something, man, wow, you're in competition, with God. And quite frankly, your devotion and your loyalty is divided. And you're a double-minded man. Yeah. Unstable in all your ways. And you're a work of vanity. You're an idol. You're an idol worshiper. Because a house divided can't stand. That's right. It can't stand. So destruction is coming to and for you. Yeah. It's got to be all or none. Hot or cold. Make up your damn mind. Yeah. Yeah. And because you stood still and the land was at rest, it furthered the affliction. Yeah. And it appeased God, You want to stand still? Well, guess what? The shit's coming for you. Yeah. You better make a movement. It's kind of like an escalator at the mall. If you're not moving up, the escalator will take you right back where you started from. And it would have been better if a millstone were cast around, tied around your neck, which is a place of burden, and you got to go back to the drawing board, to the bottom of the sea, and work your way back up again. How it's going to be. So, God also, he's pretty cool. I haven't listened to music for over 3 years. It's like everything died inside. But every time I hear these songs, whenever I'm doing something, and the song seems to be relative or tied to the work that I'm doing. And I heard the song Johnny Cash. It's like I got stripes, stripes upon my shoulders. I got chains around my feet. Well, I just had to play that song, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I said, well, Johnny Cash was in deep doo-doo. He was in trouble all the time. You know what? They hated Jesus. They're going to hate you. You want to live by the Spirit? You want to live, a life of faith, a godly life, a holy life? You want to, guess what? Well, it's like being thrown in jail, and also, you're a slave to the gospel, and you've got all these chains, and wow, the next day you're in court, and pretty soon the enemy has surrounded the Holy Land. And this is really what's going on. A lot of people don't understand that all this stuff ain't playing out over there in the Middle East. It is, but it's playing out around America. That's right. The enemies of God, and probably the UK, because that's Manasseh and Ephraim. Not to say that the 10 tribes of Israel aren't scattered in every nation, but predominantly these are the Anglo-Saxons, these are the Christians, and these are the tribes, the 10 tribes of Israel predominantly, and a haven for the Jews. There may be a lot of true Jews that have taken habitation and refuge in America, and that would probably include Canada and other places as such. But principally, we're seeing this Gog Magog, or we're going to see this nation surrounded, just like in Revelations, that when you see them surround the Holy Land, okay, know that you that are in Judea, that you need to flee to the mountains. And this is the mountains of God. Wisdom. You got to be wise to get through this one. You know what? You better get some knowledge. You better get some understanding. You better flee. Now, does this also include fleeing to literal mountains? Well, I'll leave that to you. Because if you can't hear God's voice, I live day to day. Take no thought on the morrow. The morrow shall take thought for itself. A present is the day and the evil therein. Take no thought on the morrow. If you can't hear God's voice, you better figure out how. And I'm showing you how. I am a living witness, a living epistle. I am a testimony. I am a testimony to you that it can and it does and it will happen to them that believe. All right. Salute. Until next time. You get a chance, play that Johnny Cash song. Okay? Humor me.